I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Wrestling, where I review wrestling-related things all from the perspective of a fan, not an insider. This week I'm reviewing a DVD that's been out for a while. This DVD came out in 2015. The DVD, The Ultimate Warrior, Always Believe. This DVD was actually the deal that WWE had struck with Ultimate Warrior right before he came back and was put into the WWE Hall of Fame. He'd been estranged from WWE for quite a while at that point, and he wanted what he said the real story was. Of course, it starts with the origins of him getting into the wrestling company. He wasn't really a wrestling fan or anything like that. He was going to school to be a chiropractor. But not only that, he was very into fitness, very into bodybuilding. And while into the bodybuilding scene, he met people who had gotten him into the wrestling business. He became a part of Power Team USA. When that folded, he just tagged with Steve Borden, who at the time was going by Flash Borden, him going by Rock, for the Blade Runners, which were obviously the UWF version of the Road Warriors. Doesn't go into a whole lot of reasons of why him and Sting decided to go their separate ways, but when they did, Rock of the Blade Runners went to World Class Championship Wrestling and became the Dingo Warrior. Whatever the hell that is. Sounds to me like if you're going to call yourself the Dingo Warrior, you should, I don't know, have an Australian accent. And if I was going to call myself the Dingo Warrior, my finisher would be the Eat Your Baby. But then as he was gaining success in World Class Championship Wrestling, where at one point he was the Texas Heavyweight Champion, he ended up getting a call to go and be in the WWF. Made his debut as the Dingo Warrior, but very quickly, meeting with Vince McMahon couldn't help but ask, what is a Dingo Warrior? And they decided to change his name. At the time, they had the Road Warriors. They had Kerry Von Erich, who was the modern-day Warrior. Why not have the Ultimate Warrior? It's a good change. It's a good change. Then, of course, after he changes his name from Dingo Warrior to the Ultimate Warrior, it goes into his meteoric rise. How he just instantly was connecting, mostly by ignoring all the advice he was being given. Like they were telling him things like, you shouldn't run down to the ring, you're going to blow yourself up before the match even starts. He did it anyway. Telling him how he should learn how to be more of a scientific wrestler. He didn't care about doing that stuff. Basically becoming a success on his own. Which worked out because barely a year after his debut, he became the Intercontinental Champion. As we know, the Ultimate Warrior was a two-time Intercontinental Champion, and it led to him as the Intercontinental Champion, challenging Hulk Hogan in a title versus title match at WrestleMania 6, which has been one of the biggest WrestleMania matches of all time. One of those ones we still talk about today, probably the best match that the Ultimate Warrior ever had. But, of course, as fast as he rose, he fell. And this DVD goes into a little bit of that. He admits his ego got in the way, causing him to have a fallout with WWE, but doesn't really go that far into the details of why he had a fallout with WWE. It goes into his return at WrestleMania 12. That really, in my opinion, was kind of lackluster. I remember being a kid being excited about his return, but it didn't last very long, and he went on the outs with WWE again. Then it goes into his time debuting in WCW, which I remember the night he debuted in WCW, I was excited, but it was short-lived because his WCW run, even he agrees, was terrible. He went on record saying if he had known how bad his WCW run was going to be, even for the ridiculous amount of money they paid him, he wouldn't have done it. Because it was awful. Every fan agrees that they basically just gave him that much money to come in and lose to Hogan. Although I will say the difference between Hogan losing to him and him losing to Hogan, Hogan didn't look like crap after he lost to the Ultimate Warrior. But then after that, it goes into how he had met his wife Dana. By that point, he had changed his name to Warrior so he could use it wherever he wanted, and WWE really couldn't do much about it. And how they got married and they had a couple of kids, which to him was the biggest deal of his life, was being a father. And goes into his feelings about the first Ultimate Warrior DVD that came out from WWE, the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, which you can't really find a whole lot of anymore. You can find it on eBay or like third-party sellers and stuff like that, but they don't print new ones of that because of a lawsuit. And he goes into how it really hurt his feelings. It really bothered him for a long time. Not just on a professional level, but on an emotional level. He felt very hurt by it. But eventually, he was contacted by Triple H, who by that point was the COO of WWE, contacted him basically to get him to bury the hatchet with Vince McMahon, get back into the WWE family, which is why he was then put in the newest video game they had that year, and put into the WWE Hall of Fame. And it goes a lot into the night of the WWE Hall of Fame and how he not only buried the hatchet with Vince McMahon, but Hulk Hogan. Linda McMahon inducted him, and instead of being escorted out by a couple of WWE divas, he wanted his daughters to escort him out as he gave his speech. And it was all very great. The next night on Raw, he came out and did a promo for everybody. And then later that night, on his way home, had a heart attack and died. Very crazy timing, especially after the promo he had cut that night. But then the DVD goes into his family, his daughters Indiana and Madigan, and his wife Dana, basically picking back up their lives and moving on. How Natalya Neidhart reached out to the family and became a good friend of theirs. How Madigan Warrior was saying she wanted to be a WWE diva eventually. This is when they were still doing the diva thing. As far as whether or not that's ever going to happen, who knows? I don't know what his daughters are doing, but doesn't seem like they're doing wrestling right now. But you never know, could happen in the future still. And that's kind of where the DVD ended, with his family just picking up the pieces, moving on. Very sad, but ultimately the DVD that he wanted to come out. As far as recommending this DVD, it is a good DVD. I like it. I've watched it a few times. However, even when it came out in 2015, it just kind of felt like something was missing. It really was the exact opposite of the first DVD, The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, which that DVD was completely one-sided on WWE's side, whereas this one was completely one-sided on his side. And that's just really not how life goes. There's usually kind of like a middle ground. And obviously this was before the Dark Side of the Ring episode of The Ultimate Warrior, which in my opinion was a little bit of a mixture. It was mostly focusing on how his ego caused his downfall in WWF at the time, cost him his first marriage and everything. But obviously it was an episode of Dark Side of the Ring, so they didn't really go all that into him turning things around, getting a new wife, a new family, a new career and everything. Just kind of focused on the bad stuff again. So that one was very one-sided too. I'm kind of hoping for a DVD where we kind of get the whole story. Not just his side, not just WWE's side, not just the people who don't like him side, which, let's face it, most of the people he worked with in wrestling didn't like him. Some did, but a lot of them didn't like him. It just feels incomplete in my opinion. In my opinion, I wouldn't say I'd recommend go watch this and The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, but maybe watch this and the Dark Side of the Ring episode of the Ultimate Warrior, and that's the closest you're going to get to the whole story from more than one perspective. But on that note, it is a good DVD, especially if you were an Ultimate Warrior fan like I was. When I was a kid, loved The Ultimate Warrior. Of course, I freaked out every time he came on television. I had the wrestling buddy. I had the little action figure that really could only do this. But I was a big fan. And as a fan of The Ultimate Warrior, I love this DVD, and I encourage you guys to check it out. There you have it. That's my wrestling review this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit that little bell so you get notifications when I post new videos, and leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of The Ultimate Warrior, Always Believe. Love you guys.